What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Trapfish Aquatics. Today we're going to be testing which water changing system is better, the Aqueon water changing system or the Python water changing system. Okay, so we got Aqueon water changing system and Python water changing system. As you guys saw in the thumbnail, there's obviously a price point difference. One is $20 being the Aqueon and the other is $40 being the Python. And what I want to test is the Python actually $20 better than the Aqueon. And after my first thoughts and looks at everything, I noticed that the Python sink adapter, the piece that actually connects to the sink, is one piece, and the Aqueon piece is 3 pieces. And this allows for a lot more points of failure on the Aqueon, and it also seems like the Aqueon is a cheaper plastic. So, first impressions, the hoses. The Python hose is much more pliable. It doesn't seem to really have too much of a memory, where the Aqueon one does. It likes to coil. And the siphons, the Python is just your regular siphon head, and the Aqueon has a tapered siphon on it, where it goes big and then it necks down, and then there's actually a ball valve where you can turn it off. And I'm not sure if I'm a really huge fan of turning off water supply, because depending on where you live, the pressure of water that's in your home is going to be a lot higher. I know in my house the water pressure varies between 50 and 70 psi, and other houses it's not that big of a deal. You only get about 25 to 30, and other places you could have upwards of 90 psi. So I don't know if I would necessarily like that function, but we're going to test them. I've got 2 5-gallon tanks set up out in my kitchen, and one of the things I want to test is see how quickly they fill a tank, if there is any difference between their filling capabilities as well as their draining capabilities. See if one of them outperforms the other one. And then the other thing I want to check and see is how much water is actually wasted between the two of them. So when you are draining a tank, you have to create a siphon and leave your sink running. So you're going to have water flowing down the drain, as well as water coming out of your tank down the drain. So I want to see how much the difference is in wasted water. So we're going to test for those things. So I've got everything set up in the kitchen, and we're going to go ahead out there and, test it, see what we get. Okay, so we're in the kitchen, and one thing I want to do before we get into any testing is I just want to say that this is not sponsored in any way. Both of these water changing systems were given to me secondhand. I didn't pay for either one of them. I'm just doing the test to show you guys what the results are and see if one is better than the other, or which one you guys want to pick. So let's go ahead and start the testing. Okay, so here's the test. I've got the 2 5-gallon tanks. I have them each marked out to 5 gallons. 5 gallons is perfectly full. And what I'm going to do is, this tank is obviously already started at the 1 gallon mark. I'm going to fill it up to 3 gallons, and I'm going to use a timer and lap each gallon to see approximately how long it takes to fill. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to drain this tank, and I'm going to measure how many gallons of water. It should only be 2 gallons of water that I'm going to remove from here. I'm going to see how many gallons of water is in this when we're done, and that'll be able to calculate how many gallons of water we're actually putting down the drain wasted versus how many gallons that we took out of the tank. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my timer here, and we're going to start filling the tank up. Okay, and that's the second gallon filled, and it took 28 seconds. Okay, so we could probably round that to about 30 seconds a gallon for fill. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to switch this over. Okay, and we are going to drain, and I'll lap it at every gallon. We'll see how many gallons we take out and how many get put in here and how quickly it happens. Here we go. Okay, that's the first gallon at 34 seconds. And that's the second gallon at 34 seconds. So draining the tank takes about 34 seconds a gallon, and filling the tank takes about 30 seconds a gallon, so they're relatively close. Now, one thing that I do want to point out here is we drained 2 gallons from the tank, and there is a little over 4 gallons in this tank. Now, that means that this is draining water out of your tank at a 2-to-1 ratio. So for every gallon that it takes out of the tank, it's actually putting 1 gallon of water down the drain of fresh water. So you're actually losing 2 gallons of water by running the Python. So now we're going to go ahead and switch it over, and we're going to try out the Aqueon water changer. Okay, so we've got the Aqueon water changing system hooked up, and I'm going to run the exact same test. So here we go. And the second gallon was 33 seconds. So again, about the same as the Python, approximately 33 seconds, or 30 seconds per gallon for fill. So now we're going to go ahead and run the drain test and see how that goes. And we'll start that now. So I'm going to stop this test right here, because the first thing I'm noticing is this is not creating any siphon at all. Let's see if we can figure out why. in there. Nope, nothing wrong there. Interesting. So I don't know if there's an air leak, but it can't get water up above the top of the tank. So let's try this. Completely submerge it in case there is an air leak. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to refill this tank, drain this one out, and we are going to try that one again. Alright guys, so it took a couple runs to figure out why this wasn't working off camera. And apparently what's going on is the Aqueon water changer does not create enough suction while the line is charged with water to drain a tank at this angle. Now, it could just be the way I have this set up because all the hoses on the floor coiled up. But I don't think that should really matter, because if you were going to be doing a tank somewhere, all the hose is going to be across the floor going up to your sink anyway. So I don't know. But one thing that I did find out is that inside of these, right about here, and this one's a little bit more apparent here, it necks down, I don't know if you can see in there, no you can't, to a very small nozzle. And the Python, the nozzle hole is a little bit smaller, which means it's going to create a higher pressure vacuum, which is probably why the Python is able to do that and the Aqueon is not. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hook this up again and run the drain test and see if we can get some accurate results out of it. Okay, so we've got the Aqueon water changer hooked back up here, and the line is drained, there's no water in it. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the water on and get my timer ready, and we will test this again, starting now. Okay, so that was 1 minute even for the first gallon. And I'm actually going to stop the test right there. Reason being, this drained 1 gallon of water and filled 3 gallons into the other tank, which tells me that this is obviously running a 3-to-1 ratio on drain. So the Aqueon water changer puts 2 gallons of clean water down the drain for every gallon that it withdraws from the tank. So this is running a 3-to-1 ratio, and the Python is running a 2-to-1. So the Python is more efficient when it comes to the water changers. But I do want to run one last test. I want to test my built DIY one and see how that performs. So I'm going to hook that up, and we'll test that one next. Okay, for the final test, I want to run my DIY water changing system. This uses the Python water changing adapter, and this costs about $25 to build, I built this before Aqueon made a water changing system, but Python did. So I'm going to try this now and test it out against the other ones and see how it performs. So let me get the timer ready. And we will start now. And there is the second gallon that took 30 seconds. So about the same as the other two. Those were on average about 30 seconds apiece. I think specifically they were 27 and 32 or 33 seconds. And this one was 29 and 30 seconds. So they're all about the same fill rate, about 30 seconds a gallon. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to drain and see if it drains any faster, slower, or the same. So we'll go ahead and we'll open this up and start now. Okay, so that first gallon was in about 46 seconds, and it put in about 2.5 gallons of water. So based off of that, my DIY water changing system gets put right in the middle between the Python and the Aqueon water changer. And for the price point, that's about where I expected it to fall. So that's it for the testing. Let's go back in the fish room and talk about the results. Alright, so that pretty much concludes the testing on the 3 water changing systems. And the results were pretty interesting. So the fill times on all of them were about the same, about 30 seconds a gallon. And that's kind of to be expected because it's based off of the water pressure in your house. It's all going to fill about the same. And those were the results that we got. But the interesting part was the drain times, or more interestingly is the ratios. That's more important. That's what I was looking at. And the ratios, we'll start with the Python. The Python was a 2-to-1. So when I say 2-to-1, what I mean is for every 2 gallons of water that went down the drain, 1 gallon of it was tank water, right? So 2 gallons to 1 gallon, 2-to-1. The next one was the Aqueon. That was a 3-to-1 ratio, and so that was 3 gallons of water down the drain per gallon of water of tank water. And then the last one was the DIY water changer, and that was 2.5-to-1, so 2.5 gallons down the drain for every gallon of tank water. And the interesting point about all of that is the price point, and whether or not you can justify the $40 for the Python versus the $20 Aqueon. And would I be willing to drop the $40 on a Python over the Aqueon? Yes, I would. And the reason being is over a let's say 120 gallon tank, right? If you did a 50% water change, you're looking at 60 gallons of water removed from the tank, so you're looking at 120 gallons of water down the drain, right? So with an Aqueon, instead of 120 gallons of water down the drain, you're looking at 180 gallons of water down the drain. So just to do the 60 gallons, it's actually costing you one whole tank's worth of water just to drain 60 gallons out of your tank. Plus the 60 gallons you're putting back in. So it's 1.5 tanks full of water just to do a 50% water change. And I don't know if I can justify that out of an Aqueon, but if you are in the market to get one of these, I highly recommend the Python. It seems like it did a much better job today in the testing. But after all of the testing that I've done, something that I'm really considering doing now is doing my water changes with the use of either a power head or a pond pump with a hose attached to that to run the water into the bathtub or down a drain somewhere or outside, so that way I don't have any water wasted going down a drain, and then I can just use the Python, the homemade Python or the Aqueon water changing system to add water back into the tank, still negating all the buckets. It is just one extra step of having the power head or the pond pump. But that's pretty much it for this video, guys. Thanks for watching. Go ahead and click that like button, subscribe, tell your friends, share this video around. You know, it's some good information that we learned here today. And I will see you guys in the next video.